Okay, let's hear now from our 2013 NASCAR Sprint Cup Series championship owner and championship crew chief, number 48 Lowe's Cobalt Tool Chevrolet.
Good luck.
Wins the 2013 NASCAR Sprint Cup Series championship. Owner Rick Hendrick. This is Hendrick Motorsports' 11th NASCAR Sprint Cup Series Owners Championship, the most of all time. And this is his 14th National Series Owners Championship. And certainly the 6th with the number 48 Lowe's Chevrolet. Crew Chief Chad Knaus, this is his 6th championship, all with Jimmie Johnson. And that's second all-time in the history of the sport, behind Hall of Famer Dale Inman, who's got 8. And Chad's got 64 career wins, all with the Jimmie Johnson team. So congratulations. I'm going to hear from, let's hear from Chad first. Certainly, you know, just a terrific run this season and in the chase. You handled the pressure, and you won another championship. How does that feel?
Boy, Kerry, I tell you, it's been a bit of a whirlwind. Obviously, the last I don't know how long it's been, 30 minutes or an hour. I don't know how long it's been, but it was a fantastic season. I actually spoke to my guys in the meeting before the event, and you don't know what's going to happen. You know, unfortunately, wow. You don't know what's going to happen when you come into these events. We've unfortunately had a couple races this year that we didn't finish as well as what we needed to get that 23rd position to have clinched. So when we went into the meeting today, I told the guys, you know, you need to really focus on what it was that we've achieved throughout the course of the season. We've led a bunch of laps. We've won a bunch of races. We've taken a group of new individuals, new engineers, new mechanics, new pit crew members, and they've all evolved into a pretty spectacular team. I don't think we're even close to the potential of the team yet, so that's exciting for me. But they have really, really bonded well together. They've cared for one another, and they put the team first. And that's something that's hard to do, especially with the first-year team with all these new guys. So, you know, Ron Malik, Jimmy, and myself are the only ones that are still here from 2002. So it's been quite a whirlwind and a bunch of new players, so it's a lot of fun.
Rick Hendrick, congratulations. You were in here just the other day, and you were just talking about how difficult it is to win these championships and how much they mean. And maybe talk about this one, this 2013 season that the 48 team performed so well.
You know, so many things have happened along the way. The car's been great. Jimmie's been great. Chad's been right on the money, and Jimmie just drives the wheels off of it. But Matt had a heck of a year. I mean, an unbelievable year. And they were putting pressure on us, and we were, you know, back and forth. And we get to Phoenix, and the first lap I thought we were going to wreck in the first lap. And then when Harvick made it 3 wide, I thought Jimmie had lost it again, and he saved the car. And then these restarts are just treacherous, and so I just didn't want to get excited about the championship until we could see the white flag or the checkered flag here tonight. And I thought on the restart where we got the fender tore up, it could be a big problem, you know, there too. So it's hard to win one of these, and I'm really proud of Chad and Jimmie and for winning 6 and the whole organization for getting 11. It's been I never thought I'd win 1, let alone 11. So we're pretty happy right now.
Take questions now from the floor. Ed Hinton has one. Raise your hand, Ed, and we'll start, and then we'll go over to Lewis.
Ed Hinton, ESPN.com. This is for both of you. Jimmie said out there in Victory Lane a while ago that he doesn't even want to start the discussion of 7 championships and who's the best and all that kind of thing. But, Rick, you heard Richard Childress say the other day that he'll go down in history as one of the best, if not the best. Richard Petty has said he could win 8 or 10 titles. Denny Hamlin, just in here a while ago, said, I think he's the best there ever was. So for each of you, how, when you go into next season, I mean, this is going to be a chase for history, like for the rest of this team's existence. How do you deal with that? Do you avoid it? Do you handle it? How does it, any thoughts on how that'll work?
Well, you know, I don't think Jimmie can train any harder and work any harder as an athlete to be in shape or study what the car does or what the car needs. And Chad's the same way. I mean, I don't know how they can work any harder, and they don't leave any detail undone. And this week we've been talking about how we could be better for next year as an organization. And I just think it's the drive that they have. And I think when Jimmie, when you look at Jimmie Johnson, and I like to use the Parcells quote, "You are what your record says you are." And to hear Richard Petty say what he said, and Denny and the competitors, I mean, it's taken a while for people to want to acknowledge it, but they all know how hard it is to do this, and to come out and do it, you know, year after year, and have the record he's had, and the combination that he and Chad, again, I've been doing this for 30 years now, and the attention to detail that Chad goes through preparing for a race, and elevates the whole company, and Jimmie elevates all the talent in our organization, and you know, so you look at way Jr. has run here in the chase, and you know, we're excited about next year. We think we'll be stronger, but it's just, I've never seen anybody with any harder work ethics than Chad and Jimmie.
Chad, you want to talk about that?
Wow. I mean, it's a multifaceted question, clearly. But, you know, when you hear guys like Richard Childress and Richard Petty talk about Jimmie in that light, he's an amazing talent. There's no doubt about it. He can do things with a race car that most mortals can't. You know, let's just be straight with it. And I'm very blessed to be his crew chief. But I know that the resource, excuse me, the resource that we have at Hendrick Motorsports allows him to be as good as what he is. There's no doubt about it. You know, Mr. Hendrick has given us everything that we could possibly need with everybody at Hendrick Motorsports, with engines and the chassis. We're able to turn around and make things happen quickly, and that's not the way it is everywhere. And Jimmie responds to that. He's very into what it is that we're doing. He is very studious. He's very intuitive of what's happening around him, around what's going on when we're testing or when we're racing, and he feeds us great information. So he's pretty spectacular. I mean, he really, really is. He's very fortunate to be racing for Mr. Hendrick, but let me tell you something, guys. That dude's pretty amazing. He's really spectacular.
Well, do you think this whole drive for history that he's about to go on will even phase him? Will he even blink at it, maybe?
But see, you guys, that's what people don't understand. People think that we come into the chase and we ratchet it up. Okay, we're going to go. We're going to make stuff happen. I think that's a mistake. That's not how we operate. We try to operate at 10/10s all year long. And when we get into the chase, it's kind of the norm. Which, trust me, that pisses Jimmie off, right? You know, nobody wants to work that hard, but I demand that out of him, and he demands that out of me, and we bicker, we fight, we do all that kind of stuff. But when you condition yourself to be operating at 10/10s every single lap, every single practice session, every single race, when the chase comes around, it's more the norm than the anomaly.
Let's go to Lewis Frank, Bob Pockris, Tom Jensen. Lewis?
Yeah, Lewis Frank, Speed Week. Chad, I know your mind's probably on the 2014 Daytona 500, but your numbers are getting towards Dale Inman's. And stop and think and react to that.
I'm not even close to him. I'm not even close. He's an amazing individual. He actually stopped me today, and he's like, "Son, you don't know what hard work is." And I said, "You're exactly right, sir. I have no idea." And it's the truth. I mean, he's been able to do it with multiple teams, multiple drivers, in a time where I mean, I can't even imagine, right? Like he's driving the race car to the racetrack. You know, it's just like it's a completely different set of circumstances. So, yeah, we work hard. We get headaches, and I get, you know, work on the computer, do all that kind of stuff. That dude was in there cutting with a torch and welding and building and doing stuff like that. No matter what we're able to do with the 48 car, it'll never surpass what those guys did.
Go to Bob Pockris and then Tom Jensen. Bob?
I'm Bob Pockris, Sporting News. For Chad, you talk about a lot of your guys haven't been there for all 5, but I'm curious, what did they learn maybe from last year's run that they used either as motivation, or did you change any of the way any of your procedures this time around?
You know, we didn't change a whole lot. I feel like that last year we had the best team. You know, unfortunately, midway through the season, there was some problems and changes and rules changes and so on and so forth that took a lot of speed from what we had at Hendrick Motorsports to cripple us. And otherwise, I think we would have waxed the competition last year. I don't think it would have even been close. But unfortunately, you know, that happened. But coming into this year, we had changes. We had a lot of changes, and it was good. You know, we had some guys that wanted to come off the road, get married. We had Greg Ives, who was my right-hand man for years, got the opportunity to be crew chief at JRM, has done a great job with Regan Smith over there. So things change, and I think that's the one thing that has helped this team is throughout the course of our careers, we haven't been afraid to change. And I've said it time and time again that you either have to change the personality or change the person. And we've been very fortunate that a lot of the people on the 48 have moved on to bigger and better. And that allows us to bring in new, fresh people. And when you're able to bring in new, fresh people into a proven commodity, you get some spice, you get some life. And we're very fortunate to have that this year.
Let's go over here to to Tom Jensen, and then we'll go to the press, to Nate, and then press box. Tom, Nate, press box.
Tom Jensen, foxsports.com. Congratulations, guys. Rick, with all that you've accomplished, I'm over here. Congratulations. Where does this rank? And you know, do you rank them, or is this just another championship?
No, I think I said it earlier. We barely made it through the first year, and had plans to close the shop, and we got some help, and we went on, and I've said this many times. When we would go to New York, I thought you'd go to New York to watch Richard Childress and Dale Earnhardt get a championship every year, and then we won, and then we had 3 back-to-back, and I thought it was going to be easy, and then it was a dry spell, and then Jimmie gets on a roll and does 5 in a row, which you know, I couldn't believe it when we did 3, and you know, every one of them is special, and it makes you hungry to continue to try to win more, and credit to all the folks at the company that go to work every day, from the engine shop and chassis shop, and we've stayed together and stuck together, and they've got this championship mentality, and you know, I'm amazed. You know, the level of competition today is so fierce, and any mistake or any problem, or you get swept up in something, you don't get a chance to celebrate like this. So, you know, we kind of enjoy it while we can, and hopefully we can come back and repeat. But they're all so special. This one, I don't know, I can't explain. After the last 2 years, I refused to think about winning it. My wife's sitting out here. I told her we weren't going to win it, and she said, "You're going to do it." And I just refused to believe it, just because of things that, like these valve springs right here. You know? But you know, but I'm very thankful for the talent we have and what they put together and built, and it's nice to be able to win 11 when Petty and them had 10. But you know, we'll just keep digging and see if we can come back and be competitive, and luck will be on our side next year, and we'll be able to win another one.
Go to Nate, and then we'll go to the press box.
Nate Ryan, USA Today Sports. Chad was asked this earlier in the week, Rick, so I'm going to ask you. it was 8 years ago, I think, after this race where you had to kind of have the meeting between Jimmie and Chad to make sure they stayed together. Now, 6 championships later, is there anything that you think will ever, if they keep doing this, are they just going to stay together in perpetuity? Is there anything that will split them apart? I mean, how long do you think they'll stay together?
I don't know. Chad's pretty hard to live with, but no, I'm just kidding. No,
No, he's not. He's not kidding at all. He's telling the truth.
That is truth. No, I think they have, and watching Chad and Jimmie both mature, they've learned how to not let things get to a point where there's a boiling point. And hopefully the success they've had, they know they're stronger together than they are apart. And I give Chad a lot of credit. You know, he was running hard against the chip back in those days, and he had to learn how to, you know, take defeat. And I've watched him, like I think it was Kansas when we wrecked, and he very calmly said, you know, this is what we need to do, get the car back out there. And they have tremendous respect for each other, and the chemistry is the best it's ever been. The way they go about testing, the way they debrief, and I don't foresee me having to have milk and cookies deal again. I think they can see the success right where they are right now and what they're capable of doing, and I don't think they'll let anything come between that.
Let's go to the press box for questions. Go ahead.
Lee Spencer, Fox Sports. We all know how talented Jimmie is, you know, as an athlete, as a race car driver. What can you tell us about Jimmie the individual? You know, he's so overlooked into what an incredible person he is, but, you know, we just talk about his talent. I'm not quite sure that the fan base knows what an incredible human being he is. Can you both reflect on that, please?
You know, I see more 48 shirts out there than I do anything else now. I mean, and there are a tremendous amount of fans, Jimmie Johnson fans. And Jimmie doesn't, you know, I think Jimmie's such a special person. He doesn't wave the flag a lot. He does so many things for charity, Make-A-Wish. He and Channy raise a lot of money, build houses, do things. And he doesn't try to do things to gain attention or say, look at me. He's more about letting his actions speak for himself. And he's just an unbelievable guy, father, and friend, and he's, I don't see any flaws in Jimmie. And I think the most impressive thing about him is that he lets his actions do the talking for him. He doesn't brag about it. He doesn't try to promote it. He just lets, you know, if he's going to go out and run 20 miles Monday morning, or eat like he eats and exercise like he exercises, and you know, he's just a great guy. And the talents, I mean, I think you guys have seen it. The car control is just unbelievable, and being very smart and not putting himself in a tough situation. I think, I know I heard McNabb say he wasn't an athlete. I'd like to see McNabb come run the Boston Marathon with him, or go swim, you know, the lake out here. But guys like that don't know what they're talking about. He wouldn't have been, you know, athlete of the year if people didn't know what kind of unbelievable athlete he is.
Chad, you want to comment on that?
What was the question again?
Talking about Jimmie as a person, as a competitor.
Yeah, look, man, Jimmie is a person. Wow, he's such a great dude. You know, it's so funny, we're so completely opposite, right? You know, he's West Coast. You know, I'm Type A city, details, and he's like, man, things will be okay, you know. And the thing that I think is the best about Jimmie is he always has the positive outlook. How he's able to maintain that is is amazing to me. I wish that I had a little bit of that, and I've been fortunate enough to work with him for so long that he's definitely rubbed off on me. And you know, when we get into situations where they aren't the most comfortable, or when things are a little bit stressed, it's really a good spot because I can look at him and he is, you know, he's been a mentor for me for understanding that there's more to life than just racing, and that's pretty cool. And I owe a lot of my change in attitude to Jimmie because he's opened my eyes. You have to realize I've lived my whole life in these damn circles, right? I mean, in the middle of the racetrack, that's where I live. You know, you see the circle and you put me in the middle of it, that's where I've been for 30 years of my life. And Jimmie's really made me realize that there's more to it than just that. And it's pretty special. It's a lot of fun. He's opened my eyes up to a lot of cool things. And I love him like a brother, and you know, he's pretty special to me. He's a cool dude.
Come downstairs. Jim Utter has a question. Raise your hand, Jim, and we'll bring you the microphone.
Jim Utter, Charlotte Observer. For Rick, not only with Jimmie's success, but your organization has produced 11 of the last 19 Sprint Cup Series champions. And kind of as Chad was talking about the level of commitment that the 48 has and maintains, I just wondered, what is it about you or your organization that you're able to do that in general for many of the people that come to work for you?
I think we just are very competitive, and we want to, you know, when we show up, do the best we can, and everybody in every department, they push each other to go to the next level. And I think after you win one, you want to win more, but there's a real spirit of family too inside our company, and guys like Chad, you know, they share information and they work together and they elevate the whole company. And you know, there were guys there. I mean, I go back to Harry Hyde, built an unbelievable foundation, and then people that came along just made it better. Randy Dorton and the engine shop, and then Jeff Andrews now. And I think there's just we want to go out and perform and do the best we can, and and if we don't, we go to work and work harder. And I think last year was when we didn't win the last 2 years, it made everybody ratchet it up. And confidence is a big thing. And I mean, you look at, again, Dale and Jeff came on strong in the chase, and they can feed on each other and just want to see the company grow and do more, and give people an opportunity, and everybody shares in this success. I've really, it's hard to put my finger on it other than we know it's important to stay together, we know it's important to have a plan, and we know it's important to execute, and we know we can't have if we keep our organization tight, we'll get beat now and then from the outside, but most companies get torn up from the inside. And if we can eliminate that internally, we should be competitive every year.
Go to Lewis, and then over here to Jake. Go ahead, Lewis.
Lewis, Frank Speedweek. Rick, a little while ago, Dale Earnhardt Jr. was in here, and he said he thought this was the best season that he's had with Hendrick Motorsports. I was wondering, A, how you feel about it taking a little time to gel, and B, your thoughts about 2014 with the 88.
Well, yeah, again, you take the blown motor that he had in the first race out of Chase, and he would have been right there. And he's run so well. And you know, you can't win one of these championships until you can't run the top 10 until you run 15th, and then you can't run the top 5 until you run in the top 10. But now he's consistently in the top 5, the top 3, leading laps. His confidence is at an all-time high, and he and Stevie are really clicking, and I think that's, you know, Chad and that shop, they work really well together, and he is, you can see it in his step, and I mean, he told me tonight he can't wait to go to Daytona, and I think he's got a lot of wins, and I think he's going to be a threat for the championship next year.
Let's go over here to the left, Jake, and then come to Jenna. Go ahead, right over far left.
Jay Pennell with Fox Sports. You mentioned the Donovan McNabb comments. You know, a lot of other drivers and a lot of fans and people in here got really fired up by his comments, but Jimmie seemed to just kind of blow it off on Twitter and took the higher road. Did those comments like fire him up, but behind the scenes, how does he take that kind of criticism when guys are out there publicly saying, you know, he's not an athlete here, this, that, and the other, and here he is winning 6 titles?
Shanny, you want to answer that one? Jimmie, you know, he's got this, I don't think he wants to try to prove it to anybody else. He just wants to prove it to himself, because I've never seen anyone that works any harder and any more committed to his physical conditioning, from the way he eats at certain times of the year and when he gets in the chase and the way he works out. And he doesn't let that, it might rattle him a little bit, but you won't ever see Jimmie come out and take a shot at anybody on Twitter or anything. I mean, he lets his actions do the talking, and I think that's why so many people respect him. I think that's why the garage respects him so much. He doesn't have to run over people. He doesn't have to go out and brag about what he's done. He just shows up and does his job, and sooner or later people have to say, you're the deal.
Come over here to Jenna.
Jennifer, AP. Chad, earlier you said that Jimmie does stuff in the car that mortals can't do. Can you give us some examples on that?
No, I'm not going to give away his secrets.
I don't want to well, I'm not going to understand it anyway. So.
Oh, man. You know, Jen, I've been really fortunate to have worked with some great race car drivers. And, you know, every one of these guys are very talented. Let's be honest. But Jimmie is just, he's good. He understands. He does a good job of understanding the car. And when I say that, he doesn't know a damn thing about setup, but he understands what the car's doing. He can feel the car. He can be one with the car. And I know that sounds foolish. It sounds weird, but seriously, go to a surfer and ask the surfer about a surfboard. Go to a snowboarder and ask him about his snowboard, or a skier and ask him about his skis. When they're able to get into that position and they feel the car and they understand what the car is going to do, it's pretty amazing, and Jimmie can really do that. He feels what's going on. He says some of the craziest things, that he feels a bump here or a gust of wind there. You know, one of my favorite stories is we were in Dover, gosh, a few years ago, a lot of years ago now, and we were just having a great race, and we won the race, and we were sitting there in a team debrief, and he was talking about how going into turn 1, there's a little gap in the stands. And he felt like that the wind coming through that gap in the stands was planting the nose and making the car turn down through the corner. And Robbie Loomis was crew chief on the 24 at the time, and he said, is he just batshit crazy? I said, man, I don't know. And he said, let me tell you something. That is amazing, because it's true that we had a huge wind coming through the gaping hole in the grandstands right there that whole day. And Jimmie picked it up. And he's like, man, I'm telling you, I think the wind is blowing right there. And if I come in there right, it's really turning the car really well for me. You don't have a lot of guys that can do that. You just don't. And Jimmie can do it. Does he do it every time? You know, no. But there's certain times and certain areas and certain tracks that he can make things just really happen that other drivers can't.
And Rick, what's with your valve spring necklace? That's not from Junior Chicago Engine, is it?
Oh, God. No. This is what I was worried about tonight. You know, that's probably the weakest part of the engine. And so Jeff Andrews and I were talking about it. and he said, I'm going to give you a valve spring to wear. And so he gave it to me, and I wore it. But thank goodness we don't need this one. But that's probably one of the weakest parts of the motor. So we thought if we just, it would bring us good luck. So I'm superstitious. I think one thing, just what Chad was saying about Jimmie, if you monitor every driver out here all through the race all year long, and you see how many times they get excited and go off on the radio or, you know, lose their composure, and you don't ever hear Jimmie do that.
And I saw those pizza boxes coming out, and I was like, man, I hope somebody brings me a piece. I don't suppose you brought me one, did you? No.
Thanks, boss.
I'm glad you got here. We got tired of bragging on you.
Oh.
There's some of that over there too.
Okay, let's let's hear from the man of the hour.
All right. Thank you, Curly.
Just won his, now, Jimmie, when I introduce you next year, it'll be our 6th-time NASCAR Sprint Cup Series champion. Certainly, Jimmie, now you're 3rd on the all-time list, only one behind NASCAR Hall of Famers Richard Petty and Dale Earnhardt. You won this championship 19 points ahead of 2nd place Matt Kenseth. And just talk about this season. Talk about the chase. Just talk about winning the 6th championship.
Just, you know, when I look back on the year, I think about, you know, the Gen 6 car and the race to figure out what the car wanted for speed. And the hard work from everybody at Hendrick, and then the way we've been able to connect through the 48 team and find speed in the car and develop the car and kind of innovate where the garage area, you know, kind of is today with the setup sitter in the car. You know, I give Chad all the credit in the world for honing in on those things and you know, finding speed and building me fast race cars. And we were in position to win a lot throughout the course of the year. Unfortunately, we gave a bunch away. I think we could be sitting here with a lot higher win total. But at the end of the day, we won the big prize, and that kind of helped us through some of those races that got away, was focusing on the big prize and knowing that we had speed and making sure that we were organized and had our inventory of cars and tests set up, ready to roll. So just well-executed year, top to bottom, especially in these final 10 races. You know, we didn't leave many points on the table. I can look back in a few tracks and think we could have had a few more points. But it really was a strong 10 weeks, and that's what it takes. I mean, last year we had 8 great weeks and didn't come up with it. You know, Matt had 9. You have to have 10 great weeks to be the champion, and we got it done this year.
Certainly, Jimmie, this is a huge accomplishment, and not only in NASCAR but in the sports field. So congratulations.
Thank you, buddy.
On this. We'll take questions now from Jimmie Johnson, and I think Ed had his hand up. So did Mike. Let's go to Ed Hinton.
Ed Hinton, ESPN.com. Jimmie, I heard you say out in Victory Lane you really don't think we should start this whole discussion about 7 or 8 and who's the best of all time until you hang your helmet up. Unfortunately, fortunately or unfortunately, the discussion's already begun. Denny Hamlin just said in here a while ago he thinks you're the best there's ever been. Richard Childress said on Friday that you could go down in history as one of the greatest, if not the greatest. Richard Petty thinks you could go and win 8 or 10 championships. Now, with all that going on already, how can you avoid this discussion? I mean, it seems like now for the rest of your career, you're going to be chasing history in some form or the other.
Yeah, I agree. That reality I'm fine with, and look forward to the opportunity and hope that I can certainly accomplish more. And I feel like this team is capable of a lot of great things, and there's still great years out ahead of us. But, you know, all of that is in the future, a 7th and 8th. You know, Richard said 8 to 10. That's all out ahead of us, you know, and I just don't want to focus on that yet. It's just not time. I'm going to unplug and enjoy the 6th and let it soak in, and we'll get to Daytona for testing soon enough, and I guess by then it's probably appropriate to ask the question, but I'm just humbled by the nice things that have been said by competitors and owners and my peers in this industry, and I think their opinion is very important, but I don't think my opinion matters. It's not for the athlete, the driver. It's bestowed upon you. It's passed down from others. And if others are saying it, I'm not going to deny it. I'm not going to chase it away. I mean, sure, I would love to be considered that. But if you look at stats, there's still numbers out there that I need to achieve, and that's why I say until I hang my helmet up, it's not necessarily a fair conversation to have. But honored to be in the conversation, and I know I'm going to have to face it, especially being this close to 7 and being able to have a shot at tie those guys.
Go up to Mike Hembry, then over to Greg Engel. Go ahead, Mike.
Mike Hembry, Athlon Sports. Jimmy, you came into the night needing only a 23rd, which season stats show it, but it would have been difficult for you not to get that. However, obviously you could have blown an engine or gotten a crash or whatever. Could you start the race looking at it as a normal race because of all that? I know guys always say it was just, we just need to do what we've always done. But was that really the case tonight? Could you start the race just as another race?
I truthfully and honestly did, and it's my first time in 11 starts down here. I guess I haven't fought for 11 championships down here, but in all the championship opportunities I've had, this truly was the most calm and normal weekend that I've ever had in the race car. And, a few things go towards that experience. I think that maturity and being prepared as a team and the steps that we went to be prepared, testing late, the tracks in Texas and here late in the year helped with that as well. The vibe we had going, the energy, we just had a lot of things going in the right direction, and it allowed me to enter this entire weekend as stress-free as I've ever. I mean, it felt like a normal race. It really, really did. Now, with 74 to go and everything hit the fan out there on the front stretch, it got real serious, not going to lie. But up until then, it was the most calm and relaxed environment that I've ever had down here.
Let's go to Greg Engel, then to Roger, and then to Bob. Go ahead, Greg.
Greg Engel, cupscene.com, examiner.com. Congratulations.
Thank you.
And in years past, because we all that watch know how hard you work for this, all of you. But in years past, not every fan was a fan of what you did. Tonight, however, there was, I don't think, any disdain or any boos or anything. When you got out of that car and you heard that roar of that crowd cheering you on, how did that feel in comparison to some of the years past?
It's awesome to hear the cheers, and I guess I haven't been close enough to it all to know and feel, but I'm sure there's people that aren't so happy with 48 winning the championship. That's just how it goes. But I don't frame in my day, my week, my year, any of that based on that. We're a very tight-knit race team and go to work and do our job. And, if people want to hate on us, hating technically is whining, so they can whine all they want. And my hardcore fan base that supports me, I love them and appreciate it.
Let's go to Roger right here, and then to Bob Pockris, and then to the gentleman right there, then Lewis.
Roger Holtzclaw, Speedway Media. Congratulations to all you guys. 2 quick parts, Jimmy. One, we've talked about the possibility of obviously winning 7 or 8 championships, but also you're only 38 years old. Have you given any thought to the possibility of reaching 105 wins? And the second part is, how does it feel to finally have everyone on Twitter on your side?
Did have some great support over the last couple of days, which is awesome. And yes, I am an athlete, and so is every driver in one of these race cars. Even Tony Stewart, even though he's got a little, carrying a little, but that's just fuel for his engine. He's an athlete. I completely forgot what your question was. I'm sorry. I don't know if that's obtainable. I think, with all the wins Jeff has had, You know, Jeff is going to set the mark for the current era in race wins. I don't know how you can get there. It's just, that number's way too big. Triple digits is insane to think of.
Let's go over here to Bob Pockrass, and the gentleman right behind you, and then to Lewis.
Bob Pockrass, Sporting News. Jimmie, you talked a little bit about wanting to enjoy this one more maybe than you had let yourself enjoy some of the previous ones. I'm curious, A, was it as enjoyable or more enjoyable going through these last 10 weeks than other past championships? And B, what have you done in the last maybe 2 hours to make it more fun and enjoyable as far as the celebration?
You know, last year I think I was in a very similar space. The last 2 races didn't go well, so that kind of changed things. So we made it, you know, 8 races through with a very similar, enjoyable mindset, just racing hard and not feeling the pressure, just being in the moment and able to answer the bell at times. And we won at Martinsville last year in Texas and had ourselves right in the thick of things. And you know, that was very similar to this year in how things felt. In the last couple hours, I don't know how to describe it, but just looking around and soaking it in, and I kind of do care how long I'm here tonight, but I really don't. You know, I just want to enjoy the moment. I've looked at the track 4 or 5 times. I watched my guys tear down the pit box in the pits as I was doing another interview a few minutes ago, and they all got in a big huddle, and I'm not sure what they said. They were too far away for me to see it, but they were all rallied up in a huddle, and I'm watching from afar and soaking it in, just like, there's my boys, you know? So I'm just trying to enjoy it and soak it all in. I don't know how to really describe it, to be honest.
Go ahead, sir.
Hi, Jimmie. Eben Brown, Fox News Radio. I was here when you won number 4 and number 5, and I asked you this question. I'd like to do it again, especially in light of the Twitter war that's been going on. People compare you to some other NASCAR greats, but now, and even more so now, they're comparing you to other sports greats, Tiger Woods, Michael Jordan, so on and so forth. Do you see yourself as that type of world-class athlete? Your colleagues have been calling you a world-class athlete tonight. How do you see yourself?
Never thought of it. When you mentioned Michael's name, he's giving me a hard time that I've only won 5, so I can't wait to send him a text and say, hey, buddy, I've caught up. But I guess I need to, it's not like me to think in that light into, it's just not me. So I guess I need to open my mind to it because the numbers speak for themselves, and I find myself in a touchy situation at times where my quiet approach can be looked at as arrogant or cocky, and that is furthest thing from the truth and what I'm trying to portray. So, you know, honestly, I'm just trying to, say the right things and keep my mind in the right space, because I haven't let a lot in, and it's led to more success, and it's kept my work ethic intact, and it's kept me honest and humble. And I like that about myself. I really, really do. So I don't know if I want to open my mind up and let it in and where I might stand in the sports world. It's not time for that in my eyes.
Lewis?
Lewis Frank Speedweek. Earlier, Chad pointed out that other than a few key people, you have a virtually new team this year. I was wondering, how much, did you have any apprehension at the beginning of the year, and what do you do with your new crew guys to gel?
You know, getting the year started, we got off to a quick start with the Daytona 500 and opened up at the other tracks with strong performances. But we could see where things were going. You know, Chad has a great vision on the support system that needs to be in place so that we can make the right decisions. And, you know, Dave Ellens, who's our engineer, was with us last year for a race or so when Greg Ives had to take leave for his child being born. So we got a little taste of Dave then and transitioned well. And there are we have a new shot guy, another new engineer. Well, Pete moved up, but new faces and new places, to say the least. But Chad has had a great vision on how the pieces of the puzzle fit together, and that's really in his department and world. And he's not afraid to make a change if need be. And we did make a change earlier in the year, on top of off-season changes, just to kind of get the ingredients right, and it certainly paid off.
go to George. George had a question, then we'll go to the press box, and then I have a question for you. Go ahead.
I don't know. It's the follow-up. It's going to be hard, you know, set up to the commander. Anyway, Jimmy, right in front here. George Diaz with the Orlando Sentinel. You touched on this at Victory Lane. Can you elaborate a little bit about the emotions of your grandmother passing and those that unfortunately have gone in your life?
Yeah, you know, these moments, I wish I could share them with so many I grew up with, from friends, people that worked on my off-road trucks, my dirt bikes, ASA cars, on and on. You know, it's hard to thank everybody, but through it all, you know, my family's been my biggest fan and my biggest support. You know, my mom and my dad. I lost my two grandfathers and my grandmother on my dad's side through the last 10 years, 15 years. And you know, they were just so proud of what I was chasing and there for me and supporting me. And then my grandmother unfortunately passed away last month. She was 92 and the biggest 48 fan out there. And she didn't like the beard too much, so I feel bad about that, but I stuck with the beard. But outside of the beard, I haven't done a thing wrong in her eyes, which is kind of crazy. But you know, she unfortunately wasn't able to make the funeral either, which stings a little bit. We were here testing the way everything unfolded. So I knew she would want me to work on my car and make sure that I got to Victory Lane. And again, she's my biggest fan. So I know she was riding around there on that race car with me tonight.
So we're clearing the press box. Any other questions downstairs? Jimmy, like I said, Dustin's got one. Go ahead.
Dustin Long, Motor Racing Network. Jimmy, you talk about not letting things in your head and the challenges that you may face forward. What have, I guess, been the biggest challenges through the years past that you had to overcome through each championship? What would be the challenge you foresee at this point as you move forward in repeating this, duplicating the success, continuing this type of success? What, I guess, and maybe it's too early, but if you look ahead, what's the challenge, or is it as much against you or the garage, or what?
Well, I think keeping, the 48 in its sweet spot. If it's people and the connection and the relationship and bond that we have, that's a big part of our success. And then, where our sport's heading, I think, is the other piece. There's change coming. Don't know exactly what it looks like yet, but from the competition side, we know the rules package is going to change. You always hear a little rumbling about format changing and other aspects changing. Our sport's ever changing and trying to adjust to an ever-changing world. So the target's moving on us, but I feel like we can chase the target pretty darn well, especially if we stay connected and united as we have, and I don't see why that would change any.
Okay, Jimmy, you are becoming the first athlete, and notice I say athlete, to host SportsCenter on ESPN this Tuesday night at 6 o'clock.
I am scared to death. That means I actually have to read something, which is...
Well, can you talk about that, and how are you going to prepare for that? That's a daunting task.
Yeah.
But just talk about that. That is a very, very cool
We've been working on it for a while, and with Lydia's birth kind of around a period of time we zeroed in on, we weren't able to pull it off earlier in the year. And I thought that I was relieved of my obligation there, but it is showing back up. Honored to do it, but man, I have a hard enough time at the podium reading a simple acceptance speech. So to be on for a live show trying to read a teleprompter is probably the most nerve-wracking thing I think I'm going to do this year.
We can't wait to watch it. Let's hope there's some big sports story on Tuesday.
My eyes are open, I'll be smiling. So.
Okay. Any other questions for Jimmy, Rick, or Chad before we release them? Congratulations to the 48 team, Jimmie Johnson, Rick Hendrick, and Chad Knaus.
Second.